Remakes. Most remakes are made to try and bring an old series back into relevancy, or to give fans of a long-running series a way to play some of the older games on newer platforms. In most cases, remakes are celebrated as a new way to experience an older game, or oftentimes even replace the original as the best way to play the game. And one franchise that is extremely familiar with this idea is Pokémon. Before we get into the video, I would like to quickly ask you all to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel and lets me know that you want to see more. Ever since the Game Boy Advance, Pokémon has usually released at least one remake per console, and these often become some of the greatest in the series. Back on the GBA, we had Fire Red and Leaf Green, which added a whole new section to the game that allowed you to explore and catch Pokémon that were not in the originals. On the DS, we had Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which added a ton of new features, with one that really stood out being the ability to let Pokémon follow you around, which is just a really cool addition. Then we have Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and these were amazing remakes. They added a ton of new features like Mega Evolution, and also made a few changes to locations and character designs to make the whole experience feel so much better. It also added an extremely beefy post-game, which really allowed this game to stick out. After the release of the Nintendo Switch, the first major Pokémon release on the system was Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. These games were another remake of Gen 1, and weren't anything too special, but the new catching mechanic and addition of co-op makes these games fun to play every once in a while, and they really are more like spin-off titles than anything. So everyone was still left waiting for the big Switch Pokémon remake, which, by the order they were going, would be the Generation 4 remakes. Ever since Sun and Moon were released back in 2016, people had been talking about when they thought the Gen 4 remakes would be released. There were hundreds and hundreds of leaks talking about when they would come out, all the features they would add, and all kinds of things. So by the time 2021 rolled around, fans were still waiting for the day that the remakes would be announced. And so, in February of 2021, the remakes were finally announced, and they weren't looking so good. Months passed, and it was finally time for the games to come out, and the games are not very good. Now, I feel like it is important to clarify that this game is not a horrible game at its core, but that is only because this game's core is a 16-year-old Nintendo DS game. My problems with this game come from the fact that it takes these games, and instead of improving upon them like a remake is supposed to do, it instead makes barely any changes, and the ones that it does actively make the game worse than the originals. The first problem that slaps you in the face the moment you boot up the game is the visuals. Pokemon games on Switch, I'll admit, have never really looked the greatest, and while texture-wise, these games look very similar to the others, in that we have very bland, blurry, and uninteresting textures littered throughout the game. But on top of that, this game has a whole other problem with its visuals. You see, this game is going for a style that is trying to be reminiscent of the original games on DS, but the problem is that a direct translation from sprite to 3D model does not always look that great. These models just all look really strange and kind of off. And also, all of the mainline remakes before this one upgraded the visuals to be on par with the modern generation of games. But this game decided that it would be special and somehow make itself look worse than Sword and Shield, which is a pretty low bar to begin with. Also, Pokemon can follow you in this game like they could in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But instead of making new models for the Pokemon that fit this style they were going for, they instead just shrunk the battling models, making some of the Pokemon that are larger look very out of place and strange. I mean, look at this guy. In all honesty, I think the sprites in the original game look leagues better than this and make the areas look a lot less bland. So we have established that as far as visuals go, the original games have beaten the remakes, even though the point of a remake is to make it look better. But maybe this game just adds so much new content that they didn't have time to polish the visuals. Maybe there is just so much new stuff to do that I will simply forget how terrible the game looks. So let's start with the Pokemon that are in the game. In Platinum, which was the third version of Gen 4, there were 493 Pokemon, including Pokemon that were not usually catchable, but you could transfer them from older games. In most Pokemon remakes, they go ahead and add all of the new Pokemon added since the original entries. So it is fair to assume that this game will have quite a few more Pokemon than the original. But guess what? They don't. Isn't that just swell? That's right. The supposed definitive version of Gen 4 adds not even one new Pokemon to the game. I mean, it's not even like it would be that hard. All they had to do was just copy and paste the Pokemon from Sword and Shield into this game, and I would have been happy. They didn't even need to have all of the Pokemon in it. I just think they needed to add some newcomers to make this game feel different enough for it to be worth buying. They even have sections in the underground that allow you to catch Pokemon, and they could have put the new Pokemon in here to give you some more incentive to come down here. But no, that idea would have been too fun. Another thing that I don't have as big of a problem with is the XP share. This isn't really a problem with just this game, as most of the more recent Pokemon games have had this. The problem with the XP share is that in older games, including the original Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, XP share was an item you could give to a Pokemon to level it up without having to bring it out in battle. In later entries, this was changed to where it would give XP to the whole party, but you could still turn it off if you wanted. But in this game, and a few others, you can no longer even turn it off, taking away that option of challenge that some players still might want. Like I said, it's not a huge deal to me because I mostly play the newer games with the XP share on anyway, but it's just strange to take that option away from players, because it's not like anyone gains from this. This isn't the only feature the game takes away either. A lot of content from the Pokemon Platinum version of the game is just not here, and I think that's a huge shame. The game is missing the entire Distortion World section of the game, which was one of the coolest things in all of Gen 4. You could say that since these are remakes of Diamond and Pearl and not Platinum, they don't need to have this stuff, but I mean, look at Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. During most of the campaign, it follows the original Ruby and Sapphire storylines, but you were given a whole post-game dedicated to Rayquaza, which is arguably better than what was in Emerald. But here, we don't get anything like that. I think it would have been awesome if we got a whole post-game storyline dedicated to Giratina and the Distortion World, but sadly, we don't get anything cool like that in this game. While in past Pokemon remakes, it felt like they really wanted to deliver an experience that would please older fans by remaking some of their favorite games, but also deliver an experience that was on par, or in some cases better than the new games that they would be sitting right next to on store shelves. But these remakes just feel soulless and like they were simply made to fill a release date. These games had the potential to be some of the best games in the series, but instead just took the lazy route and feel like they are just trying to unsuccessfully imitate the originals, with the 14-year-old DS game still being the better version than the remakes on modern hardware. So, if Game Freak does continue their pattern and decides to remake Gen 5, some of the greatest Pokemon games of all time, I have one piece of advice for them. Stay away!